Hi weaving friends, I've got a really interesting and special project tutorial for you today. Ever since I moved into my very first studio this year, I've wanted to put up an official studio sign. And I thought about purchasing one online, but I couldn't decide on one that I liked. So when Cricut Australia contacted me recently and asked me to partner with them, my first thought was, awesome, I can make a studio sign for myself and I can make it exactly how I want it. Now, if you would like to also make this project for yourself or something very similar, I'm going to have a link down below to a blog post with a step-by-step tutorial in addition to the video, and it will also include a link to the project in Design Space, and I'll explain what that is in just a moment. If you've never heard of Cricut before, you are definitely missing out. I admit that I wasn't sure exactly what to expect when my Cricut Maker 3 arrived. And I even felt a little bit intimidated by the thought of learning new technology, but I've been very pleasantly surprised. It's been so easy to learn, and it's really exciting what you can do with this machine. So I want to share with you really quickly before we get into the tutorial some of the things that I really love about this machine. The design possibilities are awesome. In addition to the availability of Design Space, which has hundreds of images and fonts, you can also upload your own designs. So Cricut has this app, Design Space, that you can go into, and it has a canvas there and you can lay out your designs there and then pair your computer or your laptop or your device or whatever you're using the app on with the Cricut machine. So they work together to cut out the designs. And it's all just so quick and easy. I'm going to be showing you a little bit of Design Space during the tutorial, so that will become a little bit more obvious as to what that is. The Cricut Maker 3 doesn't just cut paper and vinyl, it can also cut fabric, leather, balsa wood, and a total of over 300 materials can be used. I'm really excited about trying some of my hand woven fabric, and Cricut actually sent me a little rotary cutter that I can fit into the machine, and I'm going to be trying that out shortly to see what I can come up with there. It has an adaptive tool system, and that matches the cutting direction and the pressure to match the material that you're cutting with. The tools can be changed according to what you want to do, like as I just explained, for fabric you would put in the rotary cutter. There's also things like embossers, and I even saw something about wood burning. I haven't looked into that yet, but that looks really interesting as well. The Design Space is compatible with iOS, Android, Windows and Mac, and I'm using it with my MacBook Pro with no problems at all. I just connected it up with Bluetooth. The Cricut Maker 3 is available in Australia from Harvey Norman and Spotlight, and in New Zealand from Spotlight and Warehouse Stationery. Without further ado, let's launch into this tutorial. And I think you're going to absolutely love this sign as much as I do. So we started out with just a plank of wood, and what I really wanted to do for this project was to have some old distressed wood. That was really important to me for the look of the sign, and also important to me because I wanted to repurpose materials that we already had. So I just took a look around the property, and I was lucky enough to find exactly what I wanted. A few long planks of wood that had been sitting on top of a shed and been rained on, and the sun had got on them, and as you can see, they are quite distressed. They also had rusty nails all through them, so that was even better from my point of view, because that's really what I wanted, is a very rustic looking sign. So here my husband's just clamping those and cutting them to bits. If you want some more precise measurements, hop over to the blog post, which will be linked below, and we'll have some more particular measurements there for you. We also tried to not use too much complicated equipment to make the sign, so my husband likes to just use the basic hand saw and that sort of thing. We do use a scroll saw later on, but that's only because there was also a scroll saw at the property when we came. We actually purchased it pretty cheaply from the former owner, so we're lucky to have that as well. Now he's just taking out rusty nails. Some of them were pretty stubborn. They've been in there a long time. Don't know what this wood was used for previously. And then we use some more smaller pieces of wood that we also found on the property. You can see as those sort of pieces across to join the two larger planks together. And my husband just cut them by hand and then nailed them in by hand as well. Just one nail on each end, just to make those two base planks of wood underneath to stay together well. So that's what the front of the base of the sign looks like now. Then we move on to, he's measuring out a sort of a plaque for the front of the sign to go on top of the distressed wood, so that you can still see the distressed wood around this plaque, but so that we had a nice smooth surface to put the text on, which was going to be important because I'm using a permanent vinyl that sticks onto surfaces, but I don't think it would stick so well onto that distressed wood just because it is so rough, and I didn't want to smooth it down, sand it down or anything, because that would take away from the distressed look of it. So here's that scroll saw I was mentioning a moment ago. He's just using it to cut the basic shape of the plaque out. It's a pretty handy tool actually. So he's using MDF here. You could also use a kind of a plywood. And then he's just measuring the piece that he has cut out with the scroll saw, measuring in to make corners. He wants to cut the corners off, but he wants them all to look the same. So he's just measuring the places where that's going to happen, just to make sure that they all look equal at the end. Back to the scroll saw and just cutting off those corners one by one. The scroll saw looks like it's going extremely slowly on camera, but of course it's going really fast. It just looks a bit weird. So just cutting those corners off from the lines that he drew so that they would all look the same. I really love to have any excuse to work on a project with my husband because we always have fun doing it, and we get to combine our creative talents, and I really love that. Corners are off now, so we're ready for the next step, which is just to give it a nice light sand down, just to make it really makes a difference, just smoothing over those edges, making them not so harsh, and then making sure that there aren't any sharp edges or little bits of the wooden MDF left sticking up anywhere. He used a really fine sandpaper as well, not a rough one. The next job is that we are painting the MDF plaque. This was also paint that we found in a shed on the property. We didn't want to have to buy any paint for this project, and just so happened that they had this really nice purple that spoke to me very much. So I was grateful to find a color there that I really liked. So just painting that on with a paintbrush, putting down a base layer. We didn't do more than one coat because we just didn't feel like it needed it. And also, yeah, we're a little bit impatient and didn't want to have to wait for a second coat to dry. So this is just an acrylic outdoor paint. Really easy to wash up with water. And it's always nice when you open a tin of paint and you're not sure what it is to find that it's still okay. Paint does actually last a long time, but when it goes off, it is awful. So this paint was fine. And we found a bunch of other tins of paint too. And you will be able to see some of that in the other signs that we made. If you're interested in seeing those, you've got to wait till the end. He's just using an old piece of plasterboard to put the plaque on while he's painting it, just so that it doesn't matter if he paints on that surface, keeps the other bench surface clean. Now he's doing around the edges and the sides. The back doesn't matter because that's not going to show at all. Beautiful. So then we just had to let that dry for at least a few hours till it was completely dry. Depends on the weather on the day. If it's a warm day, it won't take too long to dry. And if it's cold, then you're probably best to leave it for 24 hours or something like that. I just love that gloss in that paint. So now it's completely dry and we are fixing it to the front of the sign. Just with nails, and you know, my husband didn't measure anything with putting the nails in. He just eyeballed it and hammered in the nails that way, and that's absolutely fine. I didn't want things to look really perfect for this sign because, as I mentioned, I wanted that rustic appeal. So just two nails in each side in similar places, just from looking. So that's the main part of the wooden part of the sign done. And then he was putting some nails into the back braces. This is for hanging. So some of the signs we made, we nailed directly in place because they were going on wooden walls, wooden exterior walls. But this one needed to go on the brick of the exterior of my studio. And so we decided that the best way to do that would be to hang it. I've got my sign here ready to measure, and what I want to measure for is I'm going to have my text coming across the middle somewhere here. So I want to have a rough measurement of what sort of length and width I really want the text to be, so that I can use that in the design program and get the text just the right size. So measuring across, and in Design Space the measurements are in centimeters, so I'm going to measure in centimeters, and I probably want to do, I think I want to do about 22 centimeters across, which is almost 9 inches. So most of the width of the plaque. And then in the width across, I wouldn't want to do more than 4 inches. I want to have a little bit of space at the bottom and the top. So that's around 10 centimeters. I already have the Cricut app on my laptop, so I'm going to click on that. I've downloaded that previously and I've made an account. So all I have to do is click on it to open it up. It says they're going to be performing some maintenance, no worries. Just click OK. And when I come in here, you can see some of the designs up the top already. Those are featured images, but of course you can search the database and find your own designs that you like as well. So the first thing that I want to do to get my text organized for my sign is to go to the new project. And then I'm going to, well, I want to do text. So I'm going to go over to the sidebar here and click the relevant one. I could click images, I could click templates, projects. I'm going to click text. You can also upload your own images and shapes. That's something I haven't really played around with yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that. Just making it full screen so that we can really see what we're doing here. So the text that I'm going to be having on my sign is simply Studio. Then I can have a look at the font and think, well, is that the font that I want for my sign? And it's not. So I'm going to go up to the fonts and I'm going to look through them until I see one that I like. Now I did cheat a little bit because I've already been in here and already picked out a font that I did really like. Now I just have to find it again. Here we go. So that's the Annie Lou font. The next thing that I need to do is resize this because at the moment it's tiny. It's 2.786 centimeters and in length, and we need it around 22. So I'm going to go up to size up the top here, and for the width I'm going to just select that and change it to 22. I'm going to double check that on my tape measure, that 22, yep, so it was 22, which is close to 9 inches. And then, so I'll click on that, instantly upsizes it. And then for the height, we wanted 10 centimeters. So it's fairly close at 10.231, but I would just want it at 10. So then it just downsized the width a little bit just to make the scale more correct, and that's absolutely fine with me. So once I've got my text there, which is a very basic thing to do, I could also save this project at this point, or otherwise I can just go directly on to the next step, which is to make it. So up in the top right hand corner here, I'm just going to click on Make It. Sorting project, yep, and then it gives me some options for what I need to choose next. It says, how will you load all of your materials for this project? The first option is without mat, and the second is with a mat. So the thing with the Cricut Smart Materials is that they are smart materials because you don't need any mat. And that's what I'm going to be using today for my sign. I'm going to be using a Smart Permanent Vinyl. It's already backed by its own mat, so I don't need to incorporate any other mat for cutting on. If I was using something like fabric, then I have a fabric cutting mat to do that on. And we'll probably have a look at that at some other point because I am pretty excited about the prospect of cutting some of my hand-woven fabric with this machine. So for this project, for the sign, I'm going to just choose without mat for Cricut Smart Materials. Yes, that's what I'm using. So that's what it looks like at this point. And then it gives you a little bit of information up the top, review, just to check that all the information is correct. And then I'm going to choose continue. So everything looks good to me. And now it's time to, it says connect to my maker. Now, What I did with my laptop is I did try the USB cable that came with it, and that didn't work for whatever reason. So what I did instead was I used Bluetooth, and I paired my laptop with the Cricut machine, which was super easy, and it means no cables, which is just brilliant in my opinion, makes it all much easier. Again, I'm going to choose my material this time, and there are a bunch of different materials, but the one that I'm going to choose is smart vinyl, because I'm using the smart vinyl in the permanent smart vinyl in the color of champagne. I see down here this smart iron-on glitter or smart vinyl shimmer. I like the sound of those, and holographic as well. I really like the sound of that. Yes, up the top it's got smart vinyl permanent, and then down here it's got smart vinyl matte metallic. So I'm going to check my box that yep, so I've actually got matte metallic even though it's a permanent vinyl. So I think I will choose smart vinyl matte metallic. Then it says no tool required in clamp A and load fine point blade in clamp B. So make sure that that is all loaded up, and I know that mine is already. So next thing is to go over to the machine and to load up the vinyl that I'm going to be using. So let's do that now. So I've got my vinyl here, and this is the champagne metallic matte. I want to cut a section of that off. It's already cut at the correct width for the machine, so I don't have to fiddle with that. But as for the length, I want to cut off the lengths that I need. I'm actually going to cut off a little bit more than the lengths that I need, just to be sure. So I'm just feeding that in, and I've got my tape measure. There's probably a better way for me to use this, but I'm not sure what it is. So I'm just going to go with a little more than 5 inches just to make sure that I have more than enough. So that's loaded in there. And then I'm just going to hold this ruler down and make a cut. Then I can grab that out of there, pop that aside, and I didn't quite get an exact cut. As I said, it's probably a better way that I can do this, but I'm just going to use the little scissors to cut the last bit. It's just like connected there very slightly. Okay, so I can put the vinyl aside, and then I can turn my machine on and load this vinyl in. So it's already plugged in at the wall. I'm just going to simply open it up, and it opens up beautifully like some sort of space machine. Super cool. And by the way, I'll just point out that I've never ever used a machine, anything like this before. Anything like 3D printers or any of those things are like totally mystifying to me. I have not used them. But this has been very, very simple to learn how to use. All right, so I'm going to load in my vinyl face up. There are some little brackets here that I'm going to load them into. Okay, and then I can press this flashing button right here, and that'll kind of load the piece in, just like that. So simple. It just measures it to make sure that it's the right thing, the right width and everything. And then I can, when I'm ready, and I think everything's loaded correctly, there's another flashing button here, a little triangle, and I'm just going to press that for it to get going. So pressing that button, and then you can just watch the machine and watch the magic happen. Doesn't require anything else from me at the moment. It's detecting the design from the laptop, and then it just starts cutting it out. And this is like real precision cutting. It's really impressive to watch. Doesn't take very long to cut out the design. Okay, and then my laptop is saying to unload the material. So to do that, press this flashing button. So flashing button usually means I want you to touch me or press me, do something with me. And then if you can see here, I don't know if you can see this. There, maybe if I catch the light there, you can see the text, but you'll be able to see it really well in a moment anyway. So that's the cutting part. Let's move on. All right, so the next step, once it's finished cutting, is I'm going to use this little tool. It's kind of a flattening tool. Might be called a burnishing tool. And I'm just going to rub over the text. And that's just to hold down the parts that I want to stay down, because I'm going to be peeling off the parts that I don't want. Another thing that I'm going to want for this part is this handy little hook. All of these tools are made by Cricut. And I'm going to peel the backing, so I'm just going to use the tool to pick up some of the vinyl backing and separate it. Okay. And then I'm just going to carefully start peeling the excess vinyl away. And the letters that have been cut will stay on there. I like to do this part pretty carefully. So there's my S. Coming away beautifully. Almost there. There we go, that's my excess. And then you can see that some of the letters are filled in still, so I'm going to use the little tool and just pick that vinyl off in the places where it's not meant to be. All right, so that is my design. Oh, I missed a bit, didn't I, in the D. There we go. And then I can, once again, use this tool to rub over, because I want these letters to stay nice and flat at this stage. Okay, next step is to use the transfer tape. Now this is what allows us to take these letters off the backing and put them where we want them. You can imagine if I took these letters one by one or tried to peel this off, it would be very hard to place it correctly where I want it to and in relation to each other letter as well. And then I risk getting creases in it and that sort of thing and bubbles. So the transfer tape allows you to transfer it, just as it says, it's a transfer tape, and that you can put it on the surface that you're going to put it on very neatly. And I'm going to peel that back from its backing carefully because I don't want to get folds in that either. Okay. And then I want to lay this down over my text. Trying not to get bubbles, etc. And I want to make sure that I cover all the letters. Okay, so that's one side. I'm going to redo just this little bit here because I've got a few creases in it. And smooth that down. That's pretty good. And then I'm going to bring in the smoothing tool again and give this a really good smoothing over. The idea is to make these vinyl pieces, the front of them, stick to the back of the transfer tape now, so that we can pick them up and put them where we want them to go. So I'm just getting out any air bubbles, any creases, anything that's going to cause issues. And then I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing. This just helps it to stick on even more. Rubbing over all those letters. Okay, so now I'm at this point. I want to grab my sign that I'm going to be putting these letters on. Just checking that over, it all feels pretty good to me. Got my sign ready and I've got my text ready. So the next thing is to peel up this backing. Now what you want is for the letter to be peeling up with it. So if that's not happening, you may need to bring in the brandishing tool again. Give it another good rub. See if that helps, and it might also help to peel back from a different angle, like so. So I'm just peeling back slowly, making sure that all my letters are sticking onto the transfer tape like they're supposed to. And that one right there isn't sticking, the I, so I'm going to give that an extra rub. And try again. There we go, it's coming away this time. There it goes. Sometimes it's just the angle at which you're pulling it off. And there we go. So now I can just discard that backing. I've got the sticky part on this side and I want to put that face down, but I want to put it exactly where I want the text to go. So I'm going to fold it in the middle just a little bit to try and do one side at a time because it's a larger piece of text, just to try and eliminate any bubbles or things. And I'm going to put it I'm just eyeballing it here. And let's see, about there I think. Okay, so I'm going to do one side first. Just let that lightly stick on there and then the other side. And I'm just going to rub all over to make sure that there aren't any bubbles or anything. This is so cool because it looks like it's been professionally painted or something. I think I'm right now. So I can start to peel back that transfer tape and my letters should stay in place. I'm going to just go in with my finger and smooth anything out that's a little bit wonky. And I'm just going to do this slowly. It's looking good. Keep going. So I'm really peeling the tape away. There we go. One final going over. Make sure it's really stuck down. And the sign is done. Don't forget to stay tuned till right to the end of this video to have a look at the other signs that we also made. Thanks again to Cricut for sponsoring this video and for allowing me to play with such a magnificent machine. Until next time, folks, happy weaving.